Hey, how you guys doing? I'm X, and I'm on the Xbox 360, and I'm going to show you guys how to find chunks. And the reason for this is because I made videos in the past about redstone lock and how there's a timing difference between chunks, and we're going to actually talk about how that affects redstone. Um, a lot of people have actually said that it's actually because of the modded maps I'm using. A lot of people ask me, what seed is that? How do you get a void world? Well, it's actually a mod, which I'm going to link O'Prize's mod tool if you guys are interested. That's where most of my worlds come from, the void worlds especially, the chunk world. These are all custom maps. Some of them I actually made myself before there was mod tools, but it doesn't really matter. I don't actually offer a download link for it or anything. So we're just going to make a nice clean map so you guys can see that this happens on every map, on every chunk. We're going to use the default texture as well. That way you guys can see that it has nothing to do with it being 32, or it's just the default settings of the game. It's actually a coding thing, which we'll actually get into on this kind of tutorial. So I'm going to make it a super flat. You can find this on survival worlds, but it's a lot easier on a super flat. Now, I'm not saying that all redstone is affected, but I will say that majority of things, if it's dependent upon timing, you have to be super careful in where you make it on the map. So what I'm basically saying is that on the Xbox 360, if you're making things out of that are using redstone and repeaters, that basically all those little squares you see loading, those are chunks. They're 16 by 16 areas, and the entire map's made of those. Some load quicker than others, as you can see over there, and so on. But what we really need to look at is what causes stuff to fail. And I'm just going to tell you that from my experience, the 2 years I've been playing on the Xbox 360, it took me about a year to really figure out what I'm getting ready to show you. But the chunk difference between one chunk and another is 1 ticks difference, which means that things are every single piece of redstone is affected if you build across a chunk. And it doesn't matter where you build it on a map. It doesn't matter what kind of map. It's worse on survival, I'll say. It's more apparent on survival. But we're going to be looking at that. So before we go any further, I need to make it nighttime because this is the easiest way to find chunks. And I'm doing this on the TU16. So let me go ahead and let it get to night. So I'll see you guys in a second. Alright, so now that it's nighttime, I'm just going to show you real quick how to find a chunk. That way you can build in the center of it and you'll have no issues with redstone. So just wherever you want to, wherever you're planning on building, you just come down here and place a glowstone lamp. And if you look, you can see the square there. So one of the easiest ways to do it is to just build a 5-tick clock. It's basically just this pattern. You repeat it. Of course, you want to establish that you're somewhere near the middle of a chunk. As you can see, that little square on the right. The reason that happens is because the chunk you're in is delayed. The light is delayed to the next chunk. So if I grab a 5-tick clock, which is a repeater like that and a repeater like this, and then torch like that, and then if I put a piston on here or a redstone lamp, it's actually going to show that chunk a lot better. So there you go, you can see it right here. So I can actually mark this chunk out with redstone now, as you can see here. It's the easiest way to find your chunk. Now I'm not really getting it over on this side, so I'm going to see if I can see it over here. I'm not seeing the chunk. Let's try speeding up the clock. Alright, so if that fails the clock, it's best just to use some glowstone. It is the simplest method. Just showing you guys a couple different ways that you can find a chunk. So, as you can see, the chunk is pretty solid over here. Which to me it looks like it was 1, 2, 3, 4. One more. And this is how you can find your chunks. Now you could use math, but not everybody's good at math. I mean, I'm not that good. One of those things I really didn't pay attention to in school. So yeah, once we establish this chunk, then we now know that we can build in this area. And the reason I'm doing this and showing you guys this is because I've noticed so many people have problems on the Xbox 360, and after, I don't know, helping thousands of people, literally thousands of people, I discovered that there's a timing difference from one chunk to the other. So the reason I'm making this video is to show you guys that you do not want to build across a chunk. So we've established this is where a chunk is. So everywhere inside this red, including the redstone itself, is actually in a chunk. Which means if you want to build something, build it in the dead center of this. And if you do go across the chunk, be prepared for there to be a 1 ticks difference. So I hope that this helps out people, and yeah. Alright, so what you guys just seen is probably going to be in every one of my tutorials for the 360, just to warn you guys that you can't build anywhere you want to. It really sucks. I mean, things are orientational, meaning they're directionally sensitive. They're also height orientational, which basically means you really have to make sure you build your redstone contraptions in a 16 by 16 area, and it has to be actually matched up with a chunk. Otherwise you're gonna have problems, and that's why I'm making this video. So I want to show you guys what happens if you don't. So I'm gonna go ahead and fill this all up with redstone, and we're gonna look at some really strange stuff. Alright, so now that I have this filled up with redstone, we have one chunk marked out exactly, and if you guys want to see just how accurate what we just did is, all those squares loading in the background, those are 16 by 16 areas. So when we come back here, we should see that red thing we made. We should actually see it right in that chunk, and there you go. You can see it was perfectly matched up. So now all we need is a clock on this, to be honest. So I just want to find roughly the center. That way I know I'm getting consistent power from one location. So I know that this chunk is marked out. I know that if I build across it, I'm going to get a timing difference. So just building a simple clock like this, a 5-tick clock, will actually show everything that can be powered being powered. So because it's being powered from here, the signal strength's not actually reaching this one piece of redstone, which is okay. So now I'm going to go ahead and go into the other chunks, and you'll actually start seeing something weird. It looks like a police siren. One side's off while one side's on. Now this is all just a visual error so far. What we're talking about is that it's just like light. The redstone's not registering it, but the light is it's actually there. So the redstone signal is getting there. So what I mean by that is that if I put a piston or redstone here, so let's just grab a piston real quick. We could also grab light, but yeah, piston's the best way to go. So if I grab a sticky piston and put it here with a block of dirt on it, you can actually see some weird things with it. For one, it's not really extending all the time. So now let's go ahead and remove this and put another piston there with some dirt on it, if I can get it to register. And you can see there's a severe time difference from one chunk to the other. Now I'm going to tell you that this doesn't happen every single time. It's like 1 out of 10 times. I'm actually creating this to show you that under right circumstances, we're actually powering 5 chunks at once. So this, the Xbox 360 is having to register 1, 2, 3, 4, and then 5 chunks, and that is enough to strain the Xbox so you end up with timing differences. For instance, the one in the center is right on time because it's being powered by that chunk. This one is being powered in another chunk, but it's just like the light. We're getting a timing difference. So if I built something here, just imagine how much problems I would have. If I put a 2x2 door here, one side is going to close before the other. And I've seen it, but it does take a lot of mobs to actually make it, you know. I'll just tell you, the more animals, the more mountains, the more things you have to render, the worse this gets. Now this is just the difference between one chunk and another. Now, as I just established with you guys just now, there's some serious stuff on the 360 that you do have to take note of if you're a redstoner. And if you're building redstone, you do need to do this. For instance, this clock locking up shouldn't have actually happened, but it is a common fault with this. But this is redstone lock. I mean, that is actually what we're talking about here. This device locked up almost completely with minimal effort, and you don't want that to happen. Now, nothing is telling this to not power. This should not be being powered. Just watch what I mean. That is redstone lock. Now that happened in the center of a chunk, but it's because I'm overwhelming this 16 by 16 area. You can actually see that there's actually a timing delay from this chunk now to this one, which tells me there's something weird with this chunk altogether. It shouldn't be powering out like that. There's no timing difference in redstone. It's instantaneous. There's no delay, at least not enough for you to see with your eye. So I just need to find a place that has the 4 merging chunks now, and this is it right here. So this inner part right here is our original 16 by 16 area, and then right here there's another chunk this way, and then there's another chunk here, and then there's the chunk that we're in right here basically. So we have 4 merging chunks here. Now if I delete this clock real quick and I move it closer, we should see just as bad, if not worse, results, because if you power through one chunk into another, you get a 1 ticks difference. So I should technically get 4 ticks difference right here in redstone. So if we were to keep track of this chunk, and then I was to power, say, this chunk over here, and apparently we have redstone lock again. So let's just update this area here. So that's what I'm trying to show you guys, is that it's very easy to create redstone lock by overwhelming the processor, or maybe the RAM. I'm going to say it's RAM. But there should be no timing differences between these. You see that they're as you can see, there's something wrong with this. If I made a redstone device that was dependent upon these pistons extending, it would not work, and it wouldn't work properly. So I hope that this shows you guys, this isn't just in this location on the map. I don't even know where I am on the map because I haven't looked yet. But the point is, it has nothing to do with X, Y coordinates. It really has to do with whether you build it in a chunk or not. I could go anywhere on this map and recreate this same scenario. Now, one thing I do have to bring up to you is that I am overwhelming it by making it power 6 chunks. But this is where it happens, and I'm just trying to tell you that when I build an elevator, for instance my multiple floor elevator, if I don't build it in the dead center of a chunk, and I go beyond it, I have to time the elevator to compensate for the fact that I'm not going to get consistent redstone signals. Alright, so that is pretty much the end of the video. It's a little bit of an educational thing slash a tutorial, and I'm going to try and fit something like this in on all of my future videos that are for console, especially if this persists. Like I said, there's nothing worse than making something, you know, making a contraption and then it doesn't work, or it just doesn't look right. My first experience with seeing redstone lock was actually right when pistons came out on the 360. And what I ended up getting was I built across, or maybe in the middle of merging chunks. And what would happen is that I noticed it at first and I just thought it was me and something I did to it that caused it to do it. But I later on found out that it was actually because I built it across the chunk. And this would simulate that. If you get a 1 ticks difference from one chunk to another, you can see that the right side is actually still symmetrical, but once I come over here, you see that this shouldn't be the same. These should not be in sync. Yeah, this side over here should be delayed and this side shouldn't. So why is it symmetrical? This is a good example as well to show you that if you build across the center of two chunks and you know know it's there, you can actually time a device to work. The only problem is occasionally it's going to register it correctly. And that's crappy. So to be safe, always build in a chunk. Yeah. So anyway, I hope you guys enjoyed this, and you know, I did want to let you know that I'm not anti-Xbox, but I will say I don't like the fact that when I go on a survival world, I can't just build a door wherever I want to. I actually got to either get a calculator out and find out if I'm going across merging chunks, you know, or I got to, yeah, it's really, really bad, is what I'm saying. It's a very bad thing. But it doesn't mean you can't play on the Xbox. And if you don't have a gaming PC, this is the best that you're going to get. So the best thing to do is to just work around it. Anyway, I hope you guys enjoyed this. Comment, like, and subscribe. And have a good one. Later.